and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The town of Burlington will be holding
This meeting
the
is being
March 19th,
transcribed and
2026
summarized.
meeting as a hybrid meeting. The governor issued an executive order on March 12, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under GL Code 30A, Section 20, and extended Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, including permitting remote meetings and participation until June 30th, 2027.
As always, members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting, but note that an option for remote attendance is being provided as a courtesy to the public, and the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. Those that are seeking to attend remotely may do so via the following. townofburlington.webex.com is our URL. Our meeting number is 2337-370-7693. And our phone number is 617-315-0704. If you are a member of the public and looking to participate remotely, raise your hand in the WebEx and we'll send you a request to unmute at the appropriate time. We're being recorded on BCAT, which can be found on Comcast 6, Astound 15, Verizon 41, and will be uploaded to the BCAT government YouTube page within the next 24 hours.
Great. We have one item being withdrawn off the agenda for tonight. May I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to take item 6A out of order for discussion purposes. It's the discussion on the application of approval for a minor engineering change for Patricia Way definitive subdivision. Murray Hills Incorporated is the applicant.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item A is a discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, Patricia Way definitive subdivision, Murray Hills Incorporated is the applicant.
So this subdivision, we received an email on March 13th, 2026, that the applicant was going to withdraw the minor engineering change. I believe that they have chosen to pursue an A&R in that manner so that they wouldn't need to fully amend the subdivision. So that is...
Thank you. I do hope that because of the change of this position of the applicant, they will still be notifying neighbors and will still be performing stormwater studies, calcs, and all the typical things that we would ask as a good neighbor relationship. May I have a motion, please?
I would like to, sorry, which?
The planning board.
Okay. Yeah, make a motion. The planning board hereby accepts the applicant's request to withdraw without prejudice on the engineering change application for the Patricia Way definitive subdivision as requested in an email from the applicant's attorney dated March 13th, 2026.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Moving on to public participation. As folks can see who are in the room, and I think that there's quite a few folks online, is there anyone in the audience or online who's here to speak on an item that is not currently on our agenda?
I see no hands raised online.
Given some of the applications and knowing that we have a lot of folks that are going to be speaking, do you have a sign-up sheet?
Yeah, I do. It's right there.
Great. If you do want to approach the board, please sign in, speak your name, and also we will be putting a time limit of 2 minutes for each person that wants to speak. If you have something that you would like to say that is repetitive, please just raise your hand. We don't need to say the same things several times. Thank you. Moving on to announcements.
Yeah, the Government Review Committee will meet next Tuesday, March 24th, and that will be at 6:30 p.m., and that will be a virtual-only meeting. And the upcoming town election is Saturday, April 11th. Day of voting will be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Early voting starts on March 30th, and that goes through April 8th, and that's during town hall operating hours.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to announce? Barbara's not here, so there's nothing to talk about in the art world, right?
Nope.
Okay. Just checking. So we don't have any legal notices at this time. We're moving on for non-approvals. Item 5A is application for endorsement of a plan believed not to require approval, 90 to 92 Middlesex Turnpike. The Davis Companies is the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung, attorney at Reamer and Braunstein. We have a request for an A&R plan for the property at 90 and 90 Middlesex Turnpike. That is the Smith & Wollensky building and the retail shops that holds the Yaz Chicken and other small retail. They're looking to subdivide the property to partition Smith & Wollensky on one parcel and then the retail on another parcel. This is part of the 90 Middlesex PDD, so frontage can be obtained either through an internal site drive or on, a public way, subdivision way. And then the PDD also allows for parking compliance over the entire parcel, but there will be a reciprocal easement agreement for shared parking.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Caleb, Liz?
Attorney Hung kind of said everything that we need to say, knowing that it's in the 90 Middlesex PDD, that it's not just the, kind of the standard 100 feet of frontage on a accepted right-of-way, so it meets frontage requirements. So yeah, there's nothing else from staff's perspective.
Great. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns? I think it's pretty straightforward. Anyone else? Short and sweet. May I have a motion then?
I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the approval not required plan entitled Plan of Burlington, Mass. Prepared by Hancock Associates dated February 27th, 2026, reflecting the division of land on parcel 52-8-0 into Lot 1, 90 Middlesex Turnpike, containing approximately 10.6 acres, and Lot 2, 92 Middlesex Turnpike, containing about 1.6 acres. The planning board finds that this is a proper submission of an approval not required plan, as the frontage requirements have been met for the buildable lot in the 90 Middlesex Turnpike Plan Development District.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here for the next one.
Oh, you're for, you again?
Yeah.
Just teasing. Item 6B is an administrative matter. Discussion application for approval of a minor engineering change, 75 Middlesex Turnpike at the Burlington Mall. Chocho? Am I saying that right?
Chocho, yeah.
Chocho Burlington LLC is the applicant.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung, attorney at Reamer and Braunstein. With me tonight, I have Tony Lau, who is online representing the applicant, and then next to me is Sarah McCarthy, our engineer from VHB. Just to give the board a little bit of the history of the site, this restaurant is going into the former Johnny Rockets at the Burlington Mall. Back in 2024, the planning board approved a special permit for a full-service restaurant and also a minor engineering change in Section 6 finding to, which approved some exterior modifications that included facade enhancements, a vestibule for an entryway into the restaurant, and landscaping and stormwater improvements. Since that time, there was some analysis done, and it was determined that a more refined and simple modification could be accomplished while achieving the objective of having an elevated and aesthetically pleasing entryway for the patrons. So this proposed program has less impervious surface area, and the building footprint has not increased. And as you will see, this rendering, it still has an elevated and welcoming entryway for its patrons. I'll turn it over now to Sarah, who can walk you through the specific modifications to the site plan.
Thank you.
Do you want to hold the red line?
The red line would be great, thank you. Good evening, Sarah McCarthy from VHB, the site civil engineer. As Christine mentioned, this proposal has much less impact to the site itself, while still kind of maintaining the aesthetic that Chocho, Soup Zen is going for with this proposed restaurant. So the previous approval had the vestibule, an increase of about 600 square feet of impervious area, and also impacted, the existing bench and bike rack that were located there. The current proposal that you see here in the red line, the vestibule is about, this same size, mostly within an existing overhang that was for Johnny Rockets previously. The sidewalk here that's shown proposed is just replacing an existing walkway that's there today. So there's no increase in impervious area with this proposal. And what we have also changed since probably the last full-size plan that you have is also add some additional shrubs over to the right here, which will provide some additional screening for an existing transformer that's remaining in that area. But as you can see, the existing bench near this entrance and the entrance to the mall over to the plan left as well, and the existing bike rack will now remain.
Staff?
Yeah, well, I mean, as was mentioned by the applicant, this is a slightly modified plan, kind of pulled back a little bit from when the board saw this in fall of 2024. And at the time, if you remember, for those who are on the board, there was pavers kind of around the space, so they're not proposing that anymore. And kind of the biggest thing that the applicant did kind of update the plan since we met with them and in the time of submission and meeting before you guys tonight. A little bit of additional landscaping around that transformer. The reason they can't do more is that they need to have space to be able to access the transformer and service it. So this is sort of the best solution to be able to allow it to be screened from the public view, but still be able to be serviced as needed. So other than that, staff don't really have any other concerns.
Great. Does anyone on the board have any questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. I actually have one question. So I know you changed the food concept and the menu's different. Do you have the old concept somewhere in existence, or no? Was that just a concept that?
I think it was a concept where the original concept was where you would have hot pot.
Yeah.
So that's gone, and it's more just a full-service restaurant where you just order and from a menu. So there's no cooking at the table. So
Do they have another hot pot in the area?
I don't know. Tony, is there another?
I just remember like that plan and the menu, and I was excited, not gonna lie. I'm sure this is going to be lovely as well, but just curious.
I did send Tony. Tony, there's a request on mute. There we go.
Hi, yes. At the moment, we don't have a second locations in the area.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any issues with this. I think it's pretty straightforward. May I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of a minor engineering change for the property located at 75 Middlesex Turnpike to modify a previously issued minor engineering change and Section 6 finding to permit the construction of a approximately 60 square foot vestibule. Building facade enhancements, new landscaping, landscaping planters, and walkway improvements as reflected on the redlined plan entitled Soup Zen Hot Pot Burlington Mall, prepared by Vanessa Hangen Bruslin Incorporated, VHB, dated October 2nd, 2024, and revised to February 23rd, 2026, consisting of one sheet subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as printed.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But you have to read all that, Jeremy.
Do you remember, I remember some of the things I've had to read, and it's like,
That's why I said, oh, the poor thing if he turns the page.
moving on to matters of appointment. Item 7A is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.10, restaurant fast food order of the zoning bylaws, One Wheeler Road, Sunflower Organic Pizza LLC is the applicant. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Thomas Murphy here for the applicant. Sitting at the table with me is Vishal Jawala, who's the principal of the Sunflower Organic Plaza LLC. The application before you is for a special permit. Vishal is hoping to open a restaurant at One Wheeler Road. That's the new building right at the corner of Wheeler Road and Middlesex Turnpike. His unit will be Unit G, which is on the bottom level, second one from the right. is looking to open a pizza store. The plan that was submitted with the application shows the proposed layout. There are 20 seats inside. There won't be any waiting staff. It's if you go in, you order your food, you can sit down and eat it there, or you can take it home. Like most pizza places, they expect to do a fair amount of takeout. He does expect, he's going to, the landlord has agreed to designate 2 parking spaces out front for short-term parking for Uber Eats and those types of delivery services. But other than that, it's going to be a pretty basic organic pizza, and Charlotte can certainly fill you in on the details of what he expects to provide. But it's sounds like a good use for the place. He's got some good ideas. Gets another tenant in down there, which is always a good thing. And he's looking forward to starting his business. He hopes to get up and running sometime during the summer. He has some build-out to do and things of that nature. So if you have any questions, obviously, we're here to answer those. But ultimately, we hope that the board will agree to forward him the special permit so we can move forward with the rest of the build-out process.
Great, thank you.
So this will be the second special permit that the board is reviewing for this new build-out at One Wheeler. As far as this tenant itself, there's no concerns. There's 20 seats. I redid the parking calculations. They have adequate parking on site. As Attorney Murphy did mention, they're looking for 2 of the short-term parking spaces. I think that one thing that the board has looked for and kind of elsewhere in town is making sure that's not branded with specific tenant-only signage. Just kind of saying 15-minute only or something along those lines, if the board would like to enforce that. That's something that we've done elsewhere. I'd say as far as the rest of the site, just to kind of inform the board, I have been working with the contractor for the overall site build-out. They're expecting to get occupancy at some point within the next month or so, kind of final early spring build-out items that couldn't be completed during the winter time. And I've expressed to Attorney Murphy, and he understands that no occupancy permits will be issued to any specific tenants until the site itself has received occupancy for the originally approved site plan improvements that the board approved a couple years ago.
Great.
So there's no other concerns from our end.
Correct me if I'm wrong, did we have issues with lighting there? Did we look into that?
There was something that was sent by, that was sent.
In the building as a whole?
To the
Okay.
inspector of buildings about a potential lighting issue, but again, that's for the full site build out, and that will be taken care of before any occupancy would be issued for the overall site, which then wouldn't be allowed for any specific tenant ahead of time.
So we have 2 applicants. We have 2 applicants for that building. We have our current applicant in front of us. And then I believe the other one is also food service?
That one's a full service sit down. It was a Q Ramen
Okay.
that Attorney Murphy also represented. It was a full service
Right.
Asian cuisine.
They have 80 seats, I believe.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's as I understand it, the build-up process is still ongoing, but I think they're trying to time it to equal when the site's going to be ready so they can get all of their permits at the same time. So I think, my guess, and I haven't talked to them recently, but I'm guessing that they're going to be ready to open shortly after the site's ready.
And I do know there is one other for a by right use that has been issued a building permit in another tenant space within One Wheeler. So they'll have, if approved tonight, there will be at least 3.
That's great. I would like to see the 2 spaces for the 15-minute unbranded parking. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. Does anyone else on the board have any questions, comments, or concerns?
I do not.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing no one. May I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to Burlington, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, we got to do one more. Now you're getting all screwed up.
Close it, you can move it now.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Sunflower Organic Pizza LLC for a special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.10 Restaurant Fast Order Food and Takeout of Article 4 of the zoning bylaw of the Town of Burlington to permit a new fast order pizza establishment for property located in the general business district and partially within the aquifer and water resource districts at 1 Wheeler Road, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A, which is attached.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Welcome to Burlington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I could, I don't anticipate being at your next meeting, but I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Mpemba for his many years of service to both to this board and the Board of Selectmen. Thank him for his service over the years and wish him the best of luck.
Thank you. Always enjoyed you coming before us.
Enjoy, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7B is a public hearing, rezone property located at 8 Kimball Court, map 31-130-0 to the Wireless Communications WC Overlay District submitted by Verizon Wireless.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Michael Gimo from Robinson and Cole. With me is Keith Valenti from C Squared. The petition was submitted by 8 Kimball Court owner LLC, which is the property owner. I think we may have Mr. Mazza, the manager, on the line. I know we have Molly Porter from his team and Cala Adelino, who's the regional property manager. Keith and I will be presenting tonight, but they're certainly available for questions.
Yep, just pulling up right now.
Pull them up, great. So the petition here is to add 8 Kimball Court to the Wireless Communications District and amend the zoning map and the bylaw accordingly. I think on, I don't know if you have the page, Caleb, that has the layout with the lot outlined in blue. I think
It's not loading right now.
it's just in load. Okay, that's fine. Just to orient people, this property is on the east side of the town. The east border of this property is the municipal border. It has a 10-story apartment building on it. The proposal here that Verizon would like to do, if this is added to the wireless communications overlay, is to install a wireless communications facility on that rooftop. Doesn't look like our,
Let me see, I think I'm getting it.
okay.
Just wanted to reboot. There we go.
Okay. Great. So folks can see the blue outline there. The building is the white, the buildings with the white roofs on the bottom. It's the furthest south of those buildings that Verizon has, conceptually designed a wireless facility that would go on that roof. The plan would be to install antennas and equipment on the roof. It's the tallest building by far in the area, and it already has Town of Burlington public safety antennas mounted on the roof. If you want to scroll through, Caleb, please. So this is the town's current wireless communications facility map. As you can see when it loads, there's really no site in the southeast corner of the town. The arrow is pretty near where the property is that we're proposing to add onto the district. If you move down, it's highlighted in yellow on the next slide. Great, thanks. So that's where that property is located. Next slide, please. The warrant article also seeks a corresponding text amendment to Section 8.4.3. I won't read that in the interest of time here, but it's a technical change just to clarify that if the town meeting decides to amend the map, the property added will be within the wireless communications district as described in the text of the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. So to be clear, town meeting approval of rezoning is not approval for Verizon to install its wireless facility at 8 Kimball Court. We are asking the town meeting to add the site to the overlay district so Verizon can apply to this board for the special permit that would be needed. And let's see, we can scroll down one more, I think. This just gives you a little sense of what the layout would be. That's just a rooftop view, And in concept, the plan would be to have 4 arrays of 3 antennas. They would be mounted on frames on the roof. They would rise no higher than 10 feet above the roof level. And if you want to, and that's just an elevation view of the same thing.
I don't think we need to get into specifics
Yeah,
of the
that's
site
what-
plan until we can figure out whether or not this
Perfect.
is actually going to get rezoned.
That's perfect. That's great. So we can move on to Keith's slides, which I think are they're after slide 17. I guess I'd conclude by saying that this property at 8 Kimball Court is really the only feasible solution for addressing Verizon's coverage gap and capacity issues, and Keith will explain why that is. Adding the site to the wireless overlay district would be consistent in all respects with Section 8.4.1 of the bylaw, which sets forth the purpose and intent of the town's wireless communications facilities regulations to comply with the intent and obligations of the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, as well as all the other purpose statements in that section. And Keith, if you'd explain now why this site's needed to fill the coverage gap and avoid the effective prohibition of service.
Sure. Good evening. Keith Valenti with C-Squared Systems. Business address is 65 Dartmouth Drive in Auburn, New Hampshire. We prepared an RF report. It's dated March 6th. I believe that was submitted. In that report at the end, there's a set of maps, which generally just visually is an easy way to explain Verizon's network in the area and how the proposed site is needed to fill a coverage and capacity need in the area. I'll be brief and in the interest of time, but just to give a general background, Verizon is licensed to deploy their service over multiple frequency bands as licensed by the FCC. So each one of these sites on the map here, which are the existing sites, are the black sets of wedges. Those are site locations for Verizon. Each one of those sites generally operates at multiple frequency bands that Verizon's is licensed to provide service over. The difference between the frequency bands is that they don't all cover the same area. Lower frequency bands have better coverage range, they propagate further, and that's just due to the nature of the physics of RF propagation. Whereas higher frequency bands, they don't cover quite as far. The advantage of those higher frequency bands is that they generally have wider bandwidths that can support more capacity. So in areas that are more busy with higher network demands, it's critical to have good coverage across all frequency bands. So that's a just general background, and hopefully that provides a little more context for the maps as we discuss them here. This first map, it's listed attachment A. This represents Verizon's existing coverage on their 700 megahertz frequency band. That is the lowest frequency band that they operate at. This is that best case scenario in terms of coverage. This is the frequency band that they'll deploy first. It'll provide that base layer of coverage, and it's pretty much deployed nationwide. This provides that first step of providing coverage for the service. That's really step one when you're deploying a network. You need the coverage there first in order to have the service. As I referenced earlier, there's a limitation on the capacity that single band can cover. So while the coverage is moderate here, and when I say by moderate, green, it would be generally appropriate to support reliable coverage in buildings and so forth. The yellow and gray areas are a bit weaker, but to a Verizon user going through here, they're probably not going to go out of service. They may suffer from poor service, particularly in busy times. But I mean, I'll always go back to if a user is having trouble connecting or has poor service, they don't necessarily care if it's a coverage problem or capacity problem. They just know that their phone isn't working the way they expect it to. So for this base layer of coverage, if we go to the next map, this shows how the proposed site would fill in the coverage, particularly along Pearl Street, Beacon Street, that area, and certainly Route 128. Route 128 serves roughly 170,000 cars per day. As we all know, it's quite busy, and the area in general is quite busy along that Route 128 corridor. So if we go to the next map, this is similar, except this is that higher frequency band of coverage that Verizon deploys the same wireless service over. but it just doesn't cover quite as far. So you can see the gaps here are much deeper, much greater. They affect a much larger area. What that means is that users located kind of in the center of the map, and I should have introduced the site in blue is the proposed facility at 8 Kimball Court. So users located in the white, certainly the gray, and even in the yellow areas where there's poor coverage at that higher frequency band, the users there will tend to look towards that 700 megahertz signal to anchor on and get the service for. So what happens is you have a large amount of users trying to that are competing for service on that single band that's capacity limited, and it affects everyone. There's only so much usage that single band can support. So what this proposed site does from that higher frequency band of coverage, if we go to the next slide, you can see that it fills in a good portion of area in southeast Burlington. Certainly, it's on the border. It's going to cover into Woburn as well, but particularly along Route 128 and some of the area roadways. So that's why it's needed to improve the coverage, particularly at the higher band, so that it can support all the usage in the area. The next set of maps that we have here, and this is the last set of kind of before and after renditions. This shows the areas that particular sectors of those surrounding sites cover. So towards the left side of the map, it's a site labeled Burlington DT. That's on the water tank. It sits on top of a hill. It's about 100 foot tall. It's 99 feet. Verizon's antennas are at 99 feet. If we look to the north, by the yellow area, that's site Wilmington 7. That's a co-location on a tower by J. Woburn Heights Apartments. And then the site located to the east of our proposed facility, it's labeled Woburn North. That's a rooftop on top of the Baldwin Medical Center. And then south of the proposed site, surrounded by that lighter blue, that's on the Jensen Building in Burlington. So from those surrounding sites, we've colored or shaded the areas that each particular sector from those different sites covers. As you can see here, the blue area from that site from the Jensen Building, it's a short rooftop. It's not going to cover very far, so the footprint of that site is quite limited. The Wilmington 7 site, the south-facing sector shown in yellow, that has some topography challenges to cover further south. And then the Woburn North, the site on top of the rooftop of the Baldwin Medical Center, that's also fairly short as well, so its footprint is quite limited. So what that leaves is in that large red area, that's the area that's presently served by that single sector off of the water tank, shooting towards the east, southeast, if you will. So it's covering a couple schools in between there. It's covering Route 128. It's covering all the way into Woburn. That's the sector that's challenged the most at present and is in need of capacity relief. So if we flip to the next slide, what this shows here is the area in green that would be covered by a facility at the subject site. What that does is the red area shrinks. The demand on it is lessened. The proposed site effectively offloads a lot of the usage currently experienced by that single sector, and now we have 4 sectors that can better serve all that usage demand. That red sector on the water tank can better serve users closer to it. So it not only benefits users in the immediate surrounding area of the subject facility, it also improves areas served by some of those surrounding sectors. So it's kind of a domino improvement. The next map is a terrain map of the area. Those coverage areas are largely defined by the topography of the area and where the site is located. As you can see, there's quite a bit of varying topography to the northwest of the site. There's a hill. Anything north of that isn't going to provide service in the area around the proposed site. So around the pond to the north, that's the next closest overlay district. that Verizon is not currently located in, but a site in there wouldn't be able to see over that hill and then cover down into the valley where 128 is. That is why, a new site in this area is necessary to fill in the service gaps for Verizon's network.
Great, thank you. Liz or Caleb?
Sure. So we have been working with the applicant on this for some time. We have gotten a lot of questions. We've asked questions, and I think one of the things that we're kind of wrestling with a little bit is alternatives analysis and kind of what has been looked at otherwise. I also want to just let the board know that there are parcels of the wireless overlay that are residentially zoned. They exist. This would be the first proposal where actual equipment, wireless cellular equipment, will be put directly on top of a residential structure. So, we have the town has a cell tower in Pine Haven Cemetery. Pine Haven Cemetery is RO, it's residentially zoned, but there's no, there's no dwellings at Pine Haven Cemetery.
Not concerned about the
No,
affiliation
right?
with them.
So that's just some understanding and of this. So that is all I have for now.
So, I know this is going to be a hot topic. I'm going to ask just a couple questions to clarify, but I know that there are a lot of people online and in the audience that would like to speak. I would like to ask, how many option agreements are pending to cover this service area? How many other property owners, how many other landowners have you spoken to? If this doesn't, what's your option B?
I don't know of any other ones.
Okay. And then do you have any pending applications in Woburn?
There are 2 sites in Woburn. I don't know if they're still pending. No, do you know those?
If you
I don't know
could
if-
follow up with,
Yeah.
with staff on that, because I'd be interested to see where those applications are, what those look like, and, the approximate location. I'm going to start with somebody online, because I know that there's folks in the audience that would like to speak on this. So let's start with the public first, and then we'll bring it back in, because I think we're going to hear a lot of the questions that we're already going to ask, but I think it's important to hear the public opinion. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak?
So right there, can you guys move that microphone over? Sure. And the sign-in sheet as well. Thank you.
So just a reminder, we are limiting everyone for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kristen Russo, 5 Kingsdale Street. I'll finish that right after. Oh, sorry. Kristen Russo, 5 Kingsdale Street. So looking at the site, there is a placement within half a mile that is zoned, not in our town, but within half a mile of this location. So I appreciate hearing you ask the question about other places looked at. In the past, we have asked for independent peer review to be covered by the applicant. This is so we can have the information. It shouldn't be our burden to look through all these RF reports, check the antenna, check the height, the location. There's so much that goes into it with the placements of it, and get the big picture of the location. Also, the zoning, which I will argue Burlington has one of the best zoning maps around, is there to make this fair and equitable to the telecommunication companies and to the town. It's not our burden to approve an ideal location because it's cheaper and easier. It's our burden to have a fair and equitable location. With that, I'm going to request that we look at having an independent peer review, like has been done in the past. We have learned a lot about the location, the company, and been able to make better decisions for the town. The Telecommunications Act does not say the town needs to grant the placement just because Verizon found ideal location for the business model. The planning board in town is justified in working with the applicants in locating antennas that fit both the needs of the business and our town. So, thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Is there anyone in?
Reminder, for those, if you are online and do wish to speak, please use the raise hand function because you're automatically muted upon entry if you do wish to speak on this matter. I don't see any.
Go ahead, Joe.
Just, Madam Chair, I just want to, I'm not sure if everybody understands exactly what the distances are and stuff, so I think that should be said to begin with. What exactly is the distance of this tower from the closest
It's a half a mile.
residential area? Residential dwelling?
It will be on top of the residential.
I just want, I want them to.
Yeah, that's still the answer. It's on top of the dwelling, yes.
It's on top. So how many, literally from the actual antenna?
Yeah,
The actual antenna you're going to put on the
yeah.
stanchion, what's the distance to the closest dwelling?
I would assume it's on whatever the floor is below it, but remember, these antennas are at the edge of the building, and they transmit out. There's nothing coming down behind them or
I'm just
beneath
asking
them.
what the distance
Yeah.
is. Do you know the distance, or?
It's whatever the distance is through the roof to the top floor. Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, that would be, you'd have to look at the architecture of the building to see how that was designed, but
Okay, so you're only talking about you're not talking about the actual tower itself. You're just trying to look, you're just talking about now, you're talking about the establishment of a new zone for this.
that's correct.
But you don't know what we could get for a distance. What's the closest distance if that was rezoned and it's going to be where you want it to be? What would be the closest distance? It would be from a dwelling.
Besides the one it's on, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a couple hundred feet from the apartments to the south. We can get you that information if that's,
I think that would be helpful. I think also, one thing is, once this is rezoned, it's not just Verizon now that can co-locate on top of this building.
Right.
Now it could be any of the carriers. What an antenna looked like 20 years ago is a far cry from what an antenna looks like today.
Right, so I'm not sure why they can't answer a question.
Because
as
they
to where-
they don't have the building dimensions. So if you think about it, I need like a drawing board here. If you've got a building, right, and your antennas are right here,
Yeah.
and the top floor is right here,
Yeah.
he can't tell us the distance between the top floor to the antenna. But what he's saying is the antennas are going in the outside. For me, it doesn't really matter where the antennas are. The distance is going to be what it is today, but that doesn't negate what it's going to be in the future.
Right, okay.
The
so-
technology has changed so much.
And then explain with our current overlay, what the distance is supposed to be from the closest dwelling.
you have a bylaw that says if the, I believe it says if the tower is in the overlay district and it's more than 200 feet, it's a by right use, and otherwise you have a special permit process.
Right, okay. And then from a school or a daycare?
It doesn't violate the school or daycare setbacks, whatever
No,
it
it
is.
doesn't, but you're going to have kids of that age that are going to be living in this area longer than they would be in daycare. So I guess what I'm saying is that brings the whole dwelling, that's why the whole dwelling piece of it comes in. That's why we created, and I only want that, I want it to be out there so people understand what's going on, because I think the average person watching doesn't really understand what we're talking about here. I was on the first wireless overlay committee, and we worked tirelessly for, I'd say, 3 years, at least 3 years, to develop the overlay that we have right now. And we put safeguards in place for a reason. I'm only asking for a comparison so people understand all the work that went into it, what we're now asking to do that may change that. I just want people to understand that. That's why I'm asking those questions. I mean, I don't care if it's to the foot, roughly, what are we talking about? If this changed, what could be the closest antenna to the closest dwelling unit? That's really what I'm asking versus what it is by law now.
Well, I think if you can figure out those dimensions, that would be great. If you can bring that to staff, that would be appreciated. Is there anyone online that would like to speak before we dive into this?
Don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. So no matter which way you dice it, I don't care what your antenna looks like, I don't care where it is, I don't, it's going to be a no for me. I think we would be setting a precedent that we'd be having antennas on a building where people have lived for quite some time and they don't have the option to move for economic reasons or for whatever else. I don't think it's in the best interest of the community. I also, knowing the industry, this is a residential building. How would one access this space?
How would one access the space?
How would one access the rooftop?
The roof, I think there's a penthouse or a roof hatch to get up to the roof.
So it would have to go through the residential space to get to the rooftop.
You mean someone trying to climb up to the roof?
Well, I mean, you're going to have contractors that are going to go in.
Right, they're going to go up there.
Right. So typically in the wireless industry, most work is subcontracted. So now we don't know who's going into this building and what the safety is for the children and adults in that building. That would be a concern for me. Again, I'd be interested to see what other pending applications you have. I really, there's some questions about what the tax base would look like if these antennas would go up. I don't think the tax base really matters to me. I don't think that it's money doesn't supersede the health of our community. Is there anyone else that has any questions, comments? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I live on Peach Orchard Road,
Okay.
right there. My first 10 years in town, I had Verizon. Not a single problem. I've got kids. We're in that neighborhood. We go to other neighborhood families' houses. Never had a problem with my phone. So I see your maps. I see it. Personal experience for myself, my wife, 10 years, no problems. So that's one thing that, raises some questions in my head about the need of this. Another is the fact that when I look at that map, I know just over the border, there's also commercial buildings, and there's quite a few that a deal could probably be worked out with to be in approximately the same space. And I know this is a tall building, so that gives it a little more punch, but there's quite a bit of clear space around those buildings, whether it's the courthouse, Stop and Shop, I'm blanking on the other.
The entire
There's
Cummings.
the Cummings property over there. So there's quite a bit of properties that aren't residential properties. So they're not in Burlington, but it's right there in that same neighborhood. So again, starting the precedent of changing the overlay district isn't about just one antenna. It's about the long-term future of many antennas. What do antennas look like in the future, to the point that they change quite a bit? And I know the signal's supposed to go out, but will it always go out? When there's new technology, will some of it come down? And, sitting up here, doesn't feel right to make a decision to support the ability to open residents up to that when there's commercial opportunities adjacent, essentially, to this building. To top it off, like I said, 10 years of having Verizon specifically in that neighborhood, no problems. So it's very hard for me to say I could see why, to approve the thought of moving this forward.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to add?
No, I guess my question would be a follow-up. Is it gotten worse over the years? Because we were told when
It's
that all happened.
more users. It's
Yeah.
basically, it's more users, different frequencies is what they're looking for. I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds like a business problem, not a Burlington problem.
It gets more, if I may, it gets more congested. There's more demand on the system. All these data applications take up a lot of service. Keith can probably explain it better than me, but these capacity issues, which he showed you in those last couple of slides, are real issues. So if there's a coverage gap or if there's a capacity constraint on providing service, the effect is the same. Mr. Harrington, I don't know if you're still a customer or, whether you've experienced any of this. You say you haven't in your neighborhood, but other people have or will if something isn't done to fill this gap.
I have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you have a lot of complaints from residents that they're not getting good service?
Again, I don't know that off the top of my head. Keith is here to tell you about the technical issues. I know Verizon doesn't plan sites that they don't feel like they need because these sites are very expensive, regardless of where they are, what they are. We can find that out for you.
I mean, at the end of the day, if there was an opportunity to go in a commercial space versus going on a residential space, does it matter what their coverage is?
No, I was just
No,
curious
I know.
the way
I'm just-
he meant, like, if there
Because I
was...
feel like we're all singing the same song.
Yeah.
That it's not something that we're interested in doing, and I will let the board speak for themselves, and, with their vote. But, I've received several phone calls from folks that aren't interested in rezoning anything that, that would allow for an antenna to go onto a residential unit, especially people who were already established. It would be one thing if it was the RO zone where I decided personally that I wanted to put a cell tower or an antenna in my backyard. That's my choice. But you're asking for a community of residents to now adhere to Verizon's needs, because Verizon's needs is more important than the needs of the community, and that doesn't sit well.
So may I ask a question, which is what exactly the objection is to having a site on a residential building? There are tens of thousands of residential buildings in the country and thousands in Massachusetts that have antennas on them.
And there's a lot of people that don't want them. And that's where we would be forcing the hands of the residents to remain in a building that they already occupy because Verizon wants to change things. And that's not fair. I don't think that that's fair to the community.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Go ahead.
So I have to follow up to what you just said. I'll get there in a second. But, so looking at your coverage map, right? You've got, 85, 95, 105 decibels. On a scale of 1 to 10, how does that actually translate? Because 99% of the people aren't going to understand what that means, right? So when you look at your map, so from Verizon's perspective, when you look at your map, are they saying, on a scale of 1 to 10, going down Route 125 is Route 128 is a 6? And so I know that you have certain metrics that will accomplish that, right? And so do you have any of those answers? Because that kind of gives us an idea of really how bad the service can or cannot be. That's question number one. Question number two is, what is in your estimation, so you've got 125 to 250 feet. I know that 700 megahertz and 3 gigahertz are going to have different propagation distances. What's the distance, in your opinion, from how far they're going to reach with no interference and no customers on it? And how does that degrade based upon the number of customers and the number and the amount of interference? And then the third thing is to your point about 10,000 buildings, there's 6 or 7 buildings here. And I don't know how many people are in there. Your note says there's 5,760 people within the range of that tower. Have the people in that building, have they voted on it? Have they been approached about it? Do they want it, right? I haven't really seen many. We had one person show up here tonight to say what they had said about it. But do the current tenants know? And if they did know, would they say yay or nay? And so if we did a vote in the space and they came back and said, yeah, 95% of them wanted it, well, that's a different answer than 95% of them saying they don't want it. So I think that would be valid information for us to have.
Well, let me just interject, Liz. Was every resident notified, or was it just the building that was notified?
So the building was not notified. It would be town meeting members were notified of this, because this is a zoning change.
Right.
So town meeting members were notified, so the town meeting members in this district were notified. And then surrounding communities were also notified. So Woburn, Wilmington, Lexington were notified about this. But as far as every single resident in this building, or even kind of, obviously the property owners know, but no, like the residents were not notified of this change.
Okay.
From a rezoning perspective. I don't know if they have, again, reached out to their tenants about it at all. I can't speak to that.
And then just one more thing to add to your comment. If it's 750 megahertz now, that could be 1150 tomorrow. Once this gets rezoned, once they can put their antennas on, they can swap out whatever they want, whenever they want, because that's what their lease is probably going to say, or it's going to be, conditioned upon approval from the landlord.
Right, but right now they're between 700 megahertz. Well, there's two questions, right? There's two separate things. One is they're between 700 megahertz and 3 gigahertz.
But does it matter what the megahertz or gigahertz are? Because whatever's today may change next week, next month, and 5 years from now, and now we're opening up an opportunity for them to transmit.
Right, but so in order for them not to get into the whole wireless business, but in order for them to add a different frequency, right? So right now most phones have 4 frequencies built into them, right? You have the old Nextel, which is in the lower 800s. The original Verizon and Cell One are, 832 to 862 and 868 to 870. Then you've got old AT&T, which was 1.9 gigahertz, and then 2.7. And then Sprint at one point had their WiMAX, which is now part of T-Mobile, which is in I think the 5 gigahertz range. So there's a whole bunch in there, right? So in order for them to add any additional ones, the FCC is going to have an auction, which is going to then have to sell that to the 3 carriers, which if the FCC does that, but now you're looking at,
But why does it matter what the frequency is?
well, that's what you just said, the megahertz is the
But no,
frequency.
but I'm saying, what does it matter? At the end of the day, we're still putting antennas on top of a residential building for folks that may or may not want it, and then setting a precedent.
Well, that's what I just said. Why don't we get a poll of the residents?
Because then what happens, I don't know. If we could get a poll, we can
I
send out a
think
notice,
getting-
and I'm
I
okay
think-
with that, but
I'm just going to sum up my position on it, and then you can say whatever you want. My
Please.
position is we put a lot of time into this.
Yep.
We dealt with a lot of experts for a lot of years. We came up with an overlay, and that overlay was 200 feet from the closest dwelling and 500 feet from the closest daycare or school. In this case, you said there's no daycare or school. No, but with the number of people that are living within even a closer distance, there are more children of that age living there for 16 hours a day versus 8 hours a day than in a comparison to what we were looking at when we developed the 500 from the daycare and the school. You got more kids of that age than you would have in the closest daycare or school, and they're exposed to that twice as amount of time during the daytime than they would if they were just at daycare or school. So my answer is, my position on this is going to be a no-brainer. I put a lot of time, we listened to a lot of experts, we came up with an overlay, which Ms. Russo actually was very eloquent in pointing out that is as good, if not better, than every town around here. And I have Verizon, and I've never had a problem with it. And I'm not that far from there. So I think, given the negatives and the positives of this, I can't see why we're even entertaining it, to be honest with you, but
I think that we should, I personally believe that we should continue this to the next board meeting. I think it's important for the 2 absent members to weigh in. I think it will also give an opportunity for folks who live at this building to chime in. I will post something on Facebook or something along those lines to see if I can get some community feedback. But I mean, I think you're hearing that I'm not in favor of this. It doesn't sound like Joe is either, and I can't speak for the remaining members. So with that being said, may I have a motion, please? I'm sorry, Mr. Kelly?
Please move the microphone again, please.
Thank you. Jack Kelly, Precinct 7, Town Meeting Member. Inasmuch as this is not being heard tonight and may continue after April 11th, at which point I'm likely to be a member of this board, I would like to go on record that I was present here and heard all the testimony.
Great, will do, thank you. Is it something new?
Yes, I'd like to respond to his comment.
I don't even think, can we just table that for next, is it something pertinent?
He's a commercial business, and he's asking to put a commercial business in a residential area. So don't just say they're all.
If you could come, if we're going to do this, let's
Sorry.
do it right.
Sorry, Kristen Russo. You're asking him to put a commercial business in a residential area. This is the same thing as asking him to put a gas station, to put Shaw's, to put any business, commercial, in a residential area. So putting these antennas as a commercial business, that's what you're asking. And that's why we're saying no, or at least I am. It's zoned for residential, not commercial.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to the planning board meeting of April 2nd, 2026.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good evening, folks. Moving on. May I have a motion to take items 7C and 7D together for discussion purposes?
I'd like to make a motion to take items 7C and 7D together for discussion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, item C is a continuing public hearing, petition to amend the zoning bylaws, Article 8, Section 8.6.0, MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District, submitted by the Gutierrez Company. Item D is a continued public hearing, rezoning of property located at 0 Summit Drive, 56-20-3, to the MBTA Multifamily Communities Overlay District, MCMOD District, submitted by the Gutierrez Company. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Robert Buckley, Reamer Bronstein. I have with me this evening Scott Weiss from the Gutierrez Company. As the chair indicated, this is a continuation of a prior hearing where the hearing was opened. There was no testimony taken because this is a recommendation of the board for a town meeting warrant article, which is required under Massachusetts law for the planning board to make a recommendation. A number of you have seen most of the presentation we're doing tonight. From a legal standpoint, we are doing it to put it on the record for the public hearing. So with that, and given the time, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Good evening. Again, Scott Weiss with the Gutierrez Company for the record. Appreciate the time here tonight. As you know, we were here previously on an informal basis, and we've been discussing some of this with the subcommittee. Some of this may be repetitive to some, but certainly to get it on the public record. I'll go quickly through things, but leave it open for questions and follow-up as need be. Presentation outline, we'll go through brief review about Gutierrez and why we're here, and then the topic of what our request is before you tonight. Just a quick overview on Gutierrez for anyone who isn't familiar. We've been around since '78, developed over 12 million square feet. We're based here in Burlington. We've done close to 20 different buildings, 2.6 million square feet in town. We can go to the next slide. One of the things, this is just an overview of basically Route 3, 128, 95 corridor, and shows some of the sites that we've worked on. 300 Summit, the topic of tonight is in yellow. Flip to the next slide. One thing that we haven't done here in Burlington is residential. We've done a couple thousand residential units in various projects, a dozen different projects. in the past, but haven't done any residential here in Burlington. Going to the next slide, about 1,000 units that are either just recently completed, approved, or under construction throughout the area and some of the different projects that we've worked on. So happy to answer more questions about Gutierrez and our history, but we can go forward. Just again, stuff we've covered before about the site itself. 300 Summit is a portion of land. People knew of it as a former DOT, Department of Transportation land, 10.8 acres, acquired about 10 years ago. It's been fully approved through the process, zoning change for a lab building on the property. 235,000 square feet of a lab building that's been approved. And associated with that approval, as well as all the work that was done previously up and down Middlesex Turnpike that we've done, including the Millipore facility behind us. There were a couple of different road improvement projects that were implemented on Middlesex Turnpike. A phase 1 that included the intersection of Summit Drive and points north, really, and then the phase 2 that included both legs of Summit Drive and the ramps on and off the highway there, the north ramps, as well as the area to the south of that location was phase 2. All of that planning, all of that road improvement work that was done included the planned build-out for the lab building that we talked about. It was included in the analysis and the evaluation, and when we did the approvals for that project as well that is yet to be built. And just going to the next slide, just a little bit of that overview of what that intersection at Summit Drive on the left versus and the ramps on and off the highway on the right, what that looked like before it was realigned, and then the realignment that was done, and all of the pedestrian facilities that were included at that time. So all of that work was done previously to plan for this next lab building. And just a little bit of history on the office park itself. Obviously includes the small building right at Middlesex Turnpike and Summit Drive, 50 Summit, which has the Jersey Mike's and Metro Credit Union, 100 Summit, the building that was renovated right behind that, which includes Work Bar, which is a co-working space, and then 200 Summit, the building that we're located in, and Millipore Sigma, which is technically 400, 600 Summit behind us as well. We think it's a fabulous campus. We're doing everything we can with 200 Summit and the properties that we own to make it as attractive a location as possible. The total campus, 640,000 square feet of space, over 30 companies. We've got cafes, we've renovated building space, we've redone facades, we've added fitness, we've got walking trails and paths. We're doing everything we can to make that, top Class A office space and make it as desirable as possible in the community. Next slide, please. Actually, it might be time to update this slide. It had some articles and information about the market and where things are. The lab market has been, there was a boom, and we had a huge need for space into the pandemic, even before the pandemic, but the early stage of the pandemic. Tremendous developer like us response in building out and preparing buildings for lab space. That market has been now, because of other external reasons, completely overbuilt, oversaturated, talking about 25-30% vacancy, and then there's indirect vacancy of shadow space, unused space, things like that. There's going to be a long time, I'm not sure it's going to be within my career, before that market comes back for new building construction. Likewise, the office space, as we all know, and those of us who maybe work in an office, the work from home, that's still working its way out and through the process. There's been increasing desire to get people back to office, but the office world has changed, and where it goes from here with AI and other impacts, Nobody's really sure, but the demand for office has definitely changed. We see that in our own building at 200 Summit, where we're doing everything we can within that space to make it, again, top Class A space that makes it desirable and seeking to have tenants, but we have 30 or 20-plus companies in that space. Companies are downsizing. They're shrinking in space. They don't need as much. They're demanding lower rents, and it's devaluing the property, and it's a very competitive marketplace. As I'm sure the town knows, you can drive around to any or many of the office buildings around town and just look at the parking lots. So it's a very competitive environment. So what are we to do to make sure that this area stays competitive and stays at the top of the market? One of the things that both nationally in the state as well as here in Burlington that we've seen, and there's true real world experience, that those environments that are mixed use, that have a variety of workplace, retail, restaurant, and residential all together are more successful and are more vibrant and more enduring in terms of their value than just an office park on its own. And a lot of these suburban office parks that haven't evolved have suffered. And we're doing this throughout our portfolio, seeking to have a mix of uses where it makes sense to add retail, to add additional services, and to add residential, so you have that, referred to it as a 24/7 lifestyle, but I think yesterday at the Economic Development Forum, they called it 18-hour. That's right, the 18-hour place where people are living and working, and they have access and close access to other amenities, which Burlington has terrific amenities, and it's availing ourselves to this. And it's an idea that is, as I mentioned, Burlington has already seen some success. I think earlier, Nordblum had been here with their rezoning request at 129, 131 Middlesex Turnpike when they were here last year, talking about how that market, where they have a mix of uses already in place, is doing better and performing better than other markets, even in here in town and in the surrounding areas. We don't want these other areas to die a slow death. We want to keep them vibrant. We want to preserve our investment in the properties that we own, and also the town's investment in benefit in the revenue that they get from these properties. So we have been commercial builders for the company's entire history. We would prefer to build a lab building. We would do that all day long. That would be our preference. But we want to preserve the investment that we have at 200 Summit and in this park to keep it vibrant and active. So moving on, what is our request, as you know, is to adopt a zoning overlay, which doesn't change the underlying zoning, but would allow for the addition of residential here on the property. Flipping to the next slide, we're using the existing zoning that's in place. We would use any category, whatever you call it, but it happens to be through this MBTA Communities Act, and we're as in comparison to other things like the recently adopted zoning change on Middlesex Turnpike, we're reducing the density down to 40 units per acre, and we're taking the height that's allowed in this district today of 90 feet and capping it down at 70 feet for the residential. But other than that, it's very much the same zoning text and zoning dimensions that you have in place elsewhere. So what we're looking to do is a variety or a mixed residential development. It would include apartments and for sale component. And a lot of people, I certainly am aware and know the town has made some efforts to promote middle housing. We're trying to create some for sale product that is not a single family house, but can hit some of that middle housing supply. That is a very, very challenging challenging product to provide economically. So what we're doing is we're helping to underwrite that with the rental component of the project. So we have 2 apartment buildings that would be rental. We have one what's called a stack flat condo building, and then 6 townhouses that would create a little bit of an ownership community. Here's the original plan that we had provided, which shows what we called Summit Village on the left, which is the for sale portion of the project, which would have condos and townhouses all for sale, and then the apartment facility on the right side of the plan in that location. We've also, since that time, we've received some really good feedback. If we go to the next slide, we've made, there's been about a dozen different comments about how to tweak the plan and modify it and make it more walkable, more integrated into the Summit site as well. And so we've incorporated those. We can go on into a revised plan, which creates more solid pedestrian areas, better pedestrian zones, and going on to the next one, to enhance, as we've talked about, to create a bike path through the facility, and then seeking ways to extend that beyond through the Housing Authority land to the south, down to Middlesex Turnpike and across under the 95 bridge, to be able to seek how we can participate to help make that happen and get that very important link in place. As many people know, there is a bike path that terminates close to the Burlington Town line in and off of North Street in Lexington, so it's not far away. And I know the Planning Board has done a lot of work to reserve some rights for some future pedestrian and bike facility connections through some adjacent properties. So we want to be that important connecting link from our site and through these other properties, so that this can be part of a larger, more comprehensive plan. We would maintain, just to go back for a second, we would maintain, there are some walking paths out there, we'd maintain all of those facilities throughout the property, so that there's a trail system, it's integrated into a bike path to enhance and connect. We have a cafe on the corner of 200 Summit, which can serve as sort of that coffee shop locally for future residents as well. And again, the idea is to be able to do this, to incorporate and make this a much more vibrant, desirable place to both live and work. So now going forward, a little bit about the impacts that we looked at. Again, there was a project that was already here that we're offsetting instead of the lab building. We had the traffic comparison to that versus this proposed residential development, and it's less traffic than what was previously planned and designed for at the site. So we can flip to the next slide. And of course, during a permitting process, we'd go through a full traffic study and a full traffic evaluation that would play this out and evaluate these numbers. We also had a fiscal study completed, which shows just on year one, it's $950,000 net benefit after you deduct costs and you deduct the existing tax from the property that's there today. You're netting another $950,000 on top of that, and you span that out, and with typical tax growth over the years, that's going to be more than $10 million over the next 10 years. Real money, real value to the town. Going forward, just again, trying to keep this brief, the summary, the need to create that 18-hour lifestyle center and to help create an environment that makes it more appealing for the products that are there in place today, as well as creating a very livable environment with the mix of residential, both for sale and rental. And then, overall, to create a benefit for the town that is more revenue, less traffic, preserves this investment, creates and provides additional housing choice, and then serves as a critical part of a link of a larger interconnected bike and pedestrian connection. And then some of the comments received, this is not an exhaustive list, but we've made some adjustments to further enhance the walkability. There's been questions about distribution of affordable units and preference for Burlington residents. We will document that and commit to all of that as part of this, and we're still looking at the connections in our commitment and document all this to provide it in an agreement that everybody understands at the board and can bring to town meeting, documenting all of these commitments as we go forward. And then last slide in closing, obviously, we've got some revisions. ZBRC made some comments on the specifics of the text. We'll go through that. Continue to address outstanding questions, and then we have upcoming meetings, continue the work with the subcommittee. Appreciate the time of everyone who's participated, and going forward and presenting to the other boards and committees as well. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate this and hope to work with the board going forward.
Thank you.
Just one before Liz gets into, I know she has lots of good comments to say. Just for anybody who's watching either live or recorded on BCAT, that presentation is up on our website. If you go to the planning department, town meeting, zoning bylaw amendments, and you go to May 2026, we do have hard copies in the room here. So you can find that online. If you have any questions, you can always email planning@burlington.org to receive a copy if you cannot find it otherwise.
Liz?
All right, thanks. So we have been working on this for quite some time. So what is being proposed is a rezoning, as Scott mentioned. This is similar to, he's adding a new sub-district to the MBTA communities. Our current MBTA communities has started with 2 sub-districts. We added a third because of the 129 to 131 on Middlesex Turnpike, the Norblum. And this would be the 4th sub-district at 40 units an acre is the requested density. It is, again, it would be an overlay, so we're not getting rid of allowing, another commercial property from going there. This is just adding an additional use. We have had 3, I believe, subcommittee meetings so far, and I know that you guys have, I've emailed all of you all the minutes from those. They've been great discussions. We've had town administrator there, members of the select board there as well. Ultimately, they're seeking this rezoning, which would allow these buildings to be built as of right, so they would not be going through a special permit. They would be going through site plan review. And therefore, because it's as of right, the town will be going into a development agreement with the property owner and the town to make sure that any mitigation is handled up front before going to town meeting. Some things that have happened since our last subcommittee meeting. So for the record, subcommittee members are Barbara LaRue and our member LaRue and member Ryan here. And so things that have happened since then, both Scott and I have been to the Burlington Housing Authority to talk about gaining access to their property. So Caleb, I'm gonna steal the screen from you just to kind of orient people. And so when it comes up, make it bigger, thank you. And so the upper parcel, the parcel up top is the proposed location, right at the intersection there of Route 3 and 128. And then the lower parcel is a parcel that is owned by the Burlington Housing Authority land. And so that's owned by them. They've been in possession of it for many years. And they are currently, they've hired an attorney and an appraiser to go through it to finally kind of see what can be done with that land. It's kind of been in their portfolio, but they haven't done anything with it. They are really just exploring their options, but they have been in contact with me. I see working with them and, being part of the community that, what we see, we want for them as well. And so, a bike path, they did seem to be, positive on the idea of a bike path, but before, they sign their names, they should make sure that they know, what they have and what is able to be done there. And so that is something that is still up in the air, whether they want to sell it or they want to lease it or, there's a number of things that they could put there. They could also put housing there as well because they're the housing authority. It's a little bit different than a housing trust. They're kind of quasi-federal, quasi-state organizations, so they're a little different than we are. But just kind of wanted to give you an update on that as well. And I think that is all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions, comments, or concerns?
I have one question. So is the plan, I haven't been following it real closely, I hope it's not, is the plan etched in stone, that's the units that you want, or are you working with anybody to see? Because I know the townhouse part of it would be very appealing to everyone I talked to is always interested in middle housing, and we don't have enough. Or is it etched in stone to have the rentals, 2 rentals, or could they put more units of the townhouses and less of the other stuff?
Sure, I appreciate that comment. Yeah, we recognize that, and I don't know if you want to flip back to the site plan or not, but it is the middle housing, and you can see the area that these units take up. The middle housing as like a townhouse is very challenging economically to build, and this is why no one's building it, because it's uneconomic. You can't build it and make money. You can't build it and even, come out even. Somebody might want to, in certain locations, build and for whatever their own accord is. But that's why the condos and the townhomes take up more space, and we figure we can do that and offset that lost value by doing the apartments and making the apartments larger. So every time so every time you add a townhouse, you're losing 10 condo units, you're losing 20 apartments just because of the size difference in how they take up the space. So it's one of the challenges that we face on this. And again, those are rough numbers. But.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine's not a question, more of a comment, and it's a comment more directed towards something Scott had said, and it's true, and it really has nothing to do with this project. It more has to do with the board understanding when we make decisions. It was a few short years ago that every developer was coming before us and telling us how they all needed the life sciences, right? And when you make decisions based on the economics at the time, that's going to change tomorrow. It could change 6 months after that. So when you make decisions on the board, it should be strictly made for quality of life purposes. I've never made decisions based on the economics, because those economics are going to change. These same developers, and it's not just Scott, it's all of it. It's, they're all coming back now and saying they're half empty. All these life science buildings are 1/3 empty, half empty, and if those decisions were made based on economics, they wouldn't have been good decisions in hindsight. So it's just crucial, I think, that the board look at every project. I'm only going to be here for another meeting. It's a comment more going forward for the board and people to understand. You make decisions based on quality of life, not on the economics that day, because that's going to change tomorrow, literally.
Madam Chair, can I respond to that?
Please.
I think that's a valid comment, Joe. And I think we gave a lot of thought to that, and that's why we opted to use the overlay, because by using the overlay, you have the ability to take advantage of a potential use that is necessary today, but preserve the underlying zoning, so that things do change. And frankly, if you go back over the time in your tenure, I didn't want to say extensive tenure.
You and I were young men when I started.
Yeah, but you're going first. You're going first. That's the beauty of the old planned development district, because it built flexibility to adapt to changing conditions. And in many respects, and I know I've said this to the staff, the reason you choose the sub-district or the MBTA, it's almost like a mini PDD, because it sets forth certain conditions, dimensionals, uses, et cetera, but you preserve the underlying zoning. So you have the ability to adjust. So, and good zoning takes 20 years, Joe, but it also has to be predictable and flexible.
Right.
And that's the balance you're trying to strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a couple things to commend this concept on, and then I do want to ask a question or two and bring up a point. You know, do commend you for working in middle housing and affordable units. I think we all know that's a gap in the portfolio in this town, and we do understand the economics of why that doesn't happen when you have a smaller plot of land where you have to make one choice. So applaud you for doing that. I also think the fact that this is essentially unused land, even though commercial is important for our tax base, to your point, I don't see a short-term or near-term commercial application here. So I think activating it for tax purposes is good. I also think that housing helps build a virtuous cycle with businesses, and that's also good. However, I feel that this is disconnected from the rest of town in many ways. It's kind of off in a corner, it's separated. You are doing work to try and connect it, but you're connecting it to large office buildings, it's behind them. So it doesn't feel as much as part of the community, which is important to us as a small community. So I have concerns about how it fits in. I know other apartment complexes are maybe closer to restaurants and active scenes where people can walk and easily be part of the community, or they're in residential neighborhoods where, you know, my kids walk home from school with kids who live in Avalon, right? It is part of the community. And here, just the look of it, the way it's set behind large buildings, up high, next to the highway, it's hard for me to view this as part of the Burlington community in the way it flows into the rest of town. So I know you're trying to do that, I just don't see how that's point is possible.
Madam Chair, can I comment on that? One of the more successful, I still don't have my tooth from that Yale.
Dentist.
I'm sorry?
You need a new dentist. It's taking forever.
If I knew when an implant took so long, I never would have embarked on it.
Still waiting for the lawsuit to come through with the guy that hit you there.
When I was on the ground, he looked up at me and said, I'm going to remember him. I do. I want to look him up. But anyways, I digress. One of the more successful living arrangements in town is Seven Springs, which is very similar in terms of what we're proposing here on a different scale, but it's somewhat isolated. It's apartments. It has an affordable component. It has for sale housing, and it has thrived over the years. People want to live there. And it's a different access, what they have access to in terms of surrounding amenities. But I do, Mr. Harrington, agree with you. The biggest challenge on this project is to do that connectivity. But we have a lot of variables in the equation that we're trying to work with to say, how do we connect it? And it's not an overnight solution. And working with staff and the planning board, I don't want to get into a political discussion, but there's a reason you come for zoning, a zoning change, to the planning board for a recommendation. And there should be a reason that the zoning board carries that discussion further into the permitting phase, et cetera. Because you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in town, where things are going, what the underlying economics are. And you have the history, and you're creating new history. So we're embarking on that journey, and we, to date, have shown that we're willing to roll up our sleeves and make it work. I do think it can work. I do think there's some very serious challenges, but incorporating access to Adams Street and potentially connecting the Minuteman bike path through Lexington, trying to figure out a convenient, safe, and inviting way to access some of the open space with the Mary Cummings and the northeastern site. All those things are in play, but it's going to take, that's really in the permitting phase, so.
Yeah, and if I may, Madam Chair, just to add to that, I think you're right. We've heard a lot of good feedback about that connectivity and how to enhance it and what we can do, and we're looking at the bike path, and you have the access in and out of there, and I would just characterize it, it's not so much as it might be behind office buildings from one side, it's kind of in front of them from another side. But I agree, the idea of increasing that accessibility and creating an environment where it feels connected, at least within this facility, and it gives space for people to be outdoors and have something. For some people, you know, in a condo or an apartment, they want to go downstairs and be in the middle of it. In some people might want something a little bit more removed, so from the noise, the hustle and bustle, but to be close to get to it. And that's one of the appeals, and that's, like, you look at Seven Spring, it's close, but even more disconnected than what we're proposing here because of the improvements that we're looking at. So I just want to throw that out there as well.
I appreciate that. I think, you know, Seven Springs may be more disconnected in some ways, but I feel like it's not far from residential neighborhoods, so there's a different type of connection there, kind of like I mentioned with Avalon on Peach Orchard, which I stated I live on earlier. Like, it's not next to a commercial area, but it's part of a residential neighborhood, and it's integrated into it. So it's a tough hill to climb in this property, so I think it's an important. You make dad jokes, I'm a dad. But it's something that I think needs to be addressed, and there might have to be some unique ways to get around it to move this forward in my head. I think also, first of all, thank you for the information on the traffic. The reduction during peak hours was actually good to see, but residential creates traffic kind of sporadically throughout the day, so I would be curious when a traffic study is done to take note of throughout the day how the traffic pattern happens, and specifically in this area, what does it do to traffic during holiday seasons? Because there's a couple months there where we're putting police on the street to wave people through and stop cars by hand, so it's not a normal traffic pattern. You know, you've got to take into consideration that peak period and the non-peak period of the year when looking at that. So I'd like that brought into consideration as we move forward. Okay, now I'm done.
Cool. I think 40 units an acre is extremely dense. I'd like to see that minimized if this was to move forward. You know, I'm still struggling with changing any type of zoning that impacts our commercial tax rate, because once we go residential, we're not going to go backwards. We know that. I think also folks are hearing discussions about the difference between, or hearing that, no, if this moves forward, they won't need a special permit because there's a development agreement. And I think there's a little bit of confusion within the community on what that means. So development agreements are basically spearheaded by the select board and council. Planning staff does provide input, but the select board gets the final say if we do not have the special permit process, while Gutierrez Company offers a beautiful product and we have a good neighbor relationship. If you decided that you wanted to sell that property, now we have a binding agreement where we don't have any teeth to do anything. We can't do anything about it because you've signed a development agreement with the town. As the chair of the planning board, I don't understand what the benefit of that is. I don't think we're all that mean. And I think we're pretty reasonable in the grand scheme of things. But I think it's important for the public to have an understanding that the special permit process versus the development agreement is very, very different. And the input of the planning board is not the final say.
Madam, could I comment on that, Madam Chair?
Please.
Yeah. That goes to the point I was making, that there's a reason we come here first, so the state requires you to come to the planning board first.
Sure.
To go through this for a recommendation. In my mind, a development agreement should be, when you go to town meeting, you can't stand up before a town meeting and say, trust me, this will happen. And that's why I referenced the planned development districts in the past. The planned development districts had as part of it conditions that the planning board had to enforce. It was called the special conditions. It's in every planned development district. I think you have to go to town meeting with an agreement that says the developer agrees that any permit, even a site plan, issued for this project should include the following conditions. So therefore, it gets backed into or baked into a permit that runs with the land and comes back to the planning board that has the history and the experience of addressing those issues. That's my personal opinion, because you work with projects and you can take from one project and apply lessons learned to another project, and that's why you have planning boards and you're engaged in planning. But I think we could satisfy both through that document, but I do think that the reality is the planning board has to be the one steering the ship. Good or bad, it has to be that way because you have the history and the gravitas of experience.
Understood.
That's my personal view.
Thank you. I know that both Barbara and Member LaRue and Member Sutherland were interested in weighing in on this. Is there anyone else that has any questions, comments, or concerns on the board?
I have just a couple of quick things. One is, I've been in the subcommittee meetings, and I just want to make sure that we're not trying to do a square peg in a round hole, because I think it is too far removed from the mall and getting down. And I've had this conversation with both of you about, this has to be able to stand on its own, right? And part of this is, we had the conversation about, well, do people want to have their back window facing 128? Well, that's a risk that you guys take. But as far as it being part of the community, I would have to look at, what do we have similar in town? One of them is one of the original parts of the land swap deal, which is the Heritage at Stone Ridge apartment complexes. They're kind of out on an island by themselves because they have to go through your old property where Salesforce is now. And then the other one is at Corporate Drive.
The reserve.
Right? The Corporate Drive. The only thing that really aggravates me about Corporate Drive is when I'm in a hurry, someone's coming out of there and the light turns red. But, so those I think are two comparable properties or products in town that we should be looking at to see how they have affected the neighbors and how the people are reacting who live there on it. And then, I'll say this again, I think that your revenue estimates are low. Just looking here on Zillow right now, there's a townhouse for $900,000. And so, the average value of $397,000 gets you at a current tax rate, gets you your $1.378 million. And please, show me a place in town for $400,000. I'll buy two, right? So I think that that revenue to the town needs to have a sharper pencil on it.
And if I can just throw one comment out, and again, we didn't do the fiscal analysis. It was done by the same company that's done others before you. But I think part of that approach is to not overestimate and to give you a number that everybody feels is going to be exceeded if it goes forward, so that you're not sitting there and saying, whoa, you guys really went too high on this and criticize it
It's a
that way.
conservative approach.
Yeah, very
It would
conservative.
be helpful that for the next meeting, if you could provide what the current tax assessment would be if we did have a life science tenant in there or another commercial tenant.
Yeah, and we can do that.
Versus what's being proposed. Again, I think, like I said, once you rezone it, we're not going backwards here.
And just one other comment on the comparison. I think you're right, for some of those other reserve or heritage at Stone Ridge. And those are, I think, less connected and a little bit more, Stone Ridge certainly, or heritage at Stone Ridge is more remote even than what we're talking about here. But I think I think what we're able to do in comparison to those is create an environment, at least where we are, that has more going on for it. It has, the ability to have a cafe nearby. It has all the trails. It has outdoor space. It has access to it. So I think there's a lot more going on in what we create. And I think that was one of your comments, is make it something that it feels good unto itself and not rely solely on a connection that some may not feel is close enough to be connected. And I think that was an important component. And then one last comment on...
Killing me.
One last comment on we can provide the valuation comparison, but I cannot stress enough that our preference would be to build a lab building. It's just not going to happen.
Not at this time, but, and with all due respect, it's kind of the equivalent of conversation that we just had with Verizon. It's not our burden to take care of, to take care of everyone.
It is.
To make
it is
sure that
not.
everybody else's business is running appropriately if it's going to impact the community in a negative way.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to impact the community in a negative way, but
Sure, and that's a
there are
good point.
things that we need to look at, it's not just one side of the coin.
I agree. And if we could all just wait until the market changes, I mean, our company has owned land for 25 years before it gets developed. We would do that. What we're concerned about most heavily is the viability and the long-term interest of this park and this building. And I don't want to be coming back to you in 5 years saying, 200 Summit's vacant, we'd like to scrape that and put in residential. Forget about what's nearby, because there's no interest in leasing it.
The other thing, while we're talking about taxes, I had looked up after our summit last night, and there was a new law, well, it was a new law to me anyways, I think it was in 2024, that commercial properties, if they transition to residential, receive a 25% tax benefit, the owners do. So, I mean, I'd like to see how I think that's missing from the analysis.
Is that limited to the city of Boston, though, I think?
No, it's all in Massachusetts. So it's my understanding that there's a federal grant, there's a Massachusetts grant, and then, and any other benefits that any town would be putting forth. So I mean, if we're going to do analysis and pull out numbers, let's do the real numbers and pull them all up. I know that there is folks from other boards that would potentially like to speak, and I know that there is, I believe, an adjacent property owner. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll first start with the board, if there's anyone from another board that would like to speak. See no one. I believe it was a representative from Millipore, is that correct?
Yes.
Sir, if you'd please come to the microphone and identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Warren Rogers with Millipore Sigma. Thank you to the board for hearing us tonight. Along with me is Ben Cradden in our in-house legal department, and virtually our head of facilities, Randall Fortin. So the headline for us is we're playing catch up here. We've just recently learned about this project through happenstance. We had not been directly contacted by Gutierrez or anybody who represents them previously. So we are certainly interested in the matter. Adjacent to the property in question is our flagship life science property in all of North America, 350,000 square feet with hundreds of millions of dollars invested in it, and roughly 670 people report out of that location. Also, within that location is what we call our M Lab, which is a showcase lab for customers and potential customers and people who visit us from all over the world, because most of our life science leadership is located in our Burlington location. And that M Lab, by my last count, there's less than 10 of those in the world. So I'd also say that Millipore Sigma is certainly not an opponent of bringing housing to Burlington. We just haven't had the time to digest and investigate the facts if this is the right place for it. We've been catching up through past meetings, through subcommittees, and we've noted a stage gate in May that was mentioned, and then also members of that subcommittee suggesting that perhaps this is going too fast and to push that out to a later date. I think it was referenced in September. So we're singing that same song. We're wanting some more time to get in touch with this and collect some data ourselves. We've seen the studies that have been presented thus far. We have not had the opportunity to have our own experts review those, or perhaps even initiate our own studies. So, yeah, in closing, I think we're just asking for more time so we can get our arms around this.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public that has any questions, comments, or concerns? Sir?
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Board. My name is Joe Desmond.
You could just get a little closer to the microphone, sir. Thank you.
I'm Joe Desmond, and I'm a resident of 38 North Street, basically in a butter for this property. I have 2 minutes, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to get that started now. Thank you. The last time I appeared before this board was before a shovel went into the ground for that building that they've just talked about, the Sigma building. And at that time, I thanked the planning board for their diligence and fairness in consideration and professionalism that they handled. It seemed like years of hearings with the Gutierrez representatives and us. And I have no reason to believe it wouldn't continue with this board. I remember Mr. Impemba from the last one when I was here. At that last meeting, when I appeared, all parties agreed and left that meeting with the understanding that was presented by all sides that after discussion of wetlands and aquifers and parking spaces and putting two buildings together to make one in height and width, that they got the building they wanted, and the square footage, the floor to area ratio was exhausted for this entire area that we're talking about tonight. Maybe not the entire area, but the canyon, the spot that Mr. Weiss put up with the townhouses, that's the canyon. That was on the board back then. So something's changed. The math has changed. The parcels have changed. The bylaws have changed, and the zoning has changed. I don't know what would cause that. You people would have more insight than me. I'm not an expert on any of these areas. Another area I wanted to mention that the gentleman from Sigma, Millipore Sigma, alluded to was, I've had no notification for that lab building that's been approved on the same space. I've had no notification. No one on North Street in Lexington, the abutters, has had notification about this proposal here. Now, back in the Canyon days, when the other proposals, 5 or 6 years ago, we had return receipt requested. I don't know what triggers that. I don't know who's responsible for that. I'm here because I learned about this entire process on the 4th when I got Mrs. Jelena's agenda for the meeting from 2 weeks ago for the 5th. I was informed the 4th. So I'm behind, just like Millipore Sigma is. And I just wanted to say that. Going back to the wetlands, they talked about wetlands that were being destroyed when they built that building. Substitute wetlands or replacement, I don't know what the term was. Were those ever made? Are there any wetlands left where we are now? I know there won't be after all of that concrete and steel and asphalt goes in. Look at the map that was displayed tonight, okay? 90% of those materials, nothing natural. What's up with the wetlands, the aquifer, the water runoff that was discussed heavily back in the prior propositions? I'm not an expert in any of these areas. I am an expert on living at 38 North Street. I've been paying Burlington property taxes there for 2/3 of my property for the last 30 years. We get no fire, we get no shuttle bus, we get no trash pickup, we get no police. We don't get any of that. And you say, well, geez, you don't get much for your money. But that's wrong. I get a lot from my tax money. I get two things. I go out in my backyard, I feed the birds, I play with my dog, and I enjoy a little solitude. And the other thing I get is access and a connection to a world-class community in Burlington, okay? And that's much because of the work that's been done in this room over all these years. Place that people want to work and reside and bring up their family and put them through the school system. I shop, I dine, and I'm in Burlington every day. Access to a world-class medical facility down the street. That's what I get out of Burlington, so I'm not getting shortchanged.
Sir, we've hit 4 minutes. So I'm just letting you know we've hit 4 minutes.
4 minutes?
Yes.
I've talked 4 minutes?
Yes.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Can I?
I just want to make sure that we're paying
I'm
attention.
going to get.
Thank you, sir.
You got 1 or 2 more points, or am I done? It's up.
If you can make them brief, thank you.
Mr. Harrington said about being cut off from everywhere. You can't get to the Burlington Mall from there on foot or bike. Then there was mention of the other parcel on the far right-hand side, that other parcel, that's known as 56-20-3. And my understanding there was when the state gave it to the town of Burlington, they gave it to them with the understanding it's limited to schools and recreation, okay? Not some of the other things that were talked about this evening. Seven Springs, comparing to that, they have Mary Cummings Park. We had our version of Mary Cummings Park until this project was done. There's currently tenants in that place right now. There's deer, and there's raccoon, and there's skunks, and there's hawks, and there's owls, and everything that goes along with that. There was a bear in there. I think he's been evicted because, according to published reports, he was last seen at Buffalo Wild Wings dining out of the dumpster. I think it was Honey Barbecue.
I feel like that's so appropriate.
So,
but
bridges, interstate, light, air, and sound pollution, toxic chemical dump in the capping. Nobody's talking about that. What happened to the capping of toxic chemicals that walking path that exists today is built on? And what is the status of that? My understanding is it wasn't done correctly.
We're talking about right now. We've superseded the 2 minutes. We're now at 6.
Okay.
So I think if you have specific questions about previous projects,
Yeah.
I'm sure our professional staff would be happy to assist you and review anything that is transpired in the past.
I appreciate all your time. I did go to all the subcommittee meetings when I was aware of them from the last iteration of what's on the table.
Okay. And if you're already on the email list, you'll continue to be contacted moving forward.
I've signed up for that through
Perfect.
your office, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, sir.
time.
Okay. Is there anyone online that has any questions, comments, concerns?
You see one hand from Laura.
Laura, if you could identify yourself with your full name and address, please. She's still muted.
Yep. Laura, just the request has been sent on mute. Should pop up on your screen. Try one more time. Doesn't look like it's working.
Okay. Laura, I apologize. If you have a question, comment, or concern, please feel free to either email professional staff.
Planning@burlington.org.
Thank you. And we will get back to you as soon as possible. That being said, may I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to the planning board meeting of April 2nd, 2026.
Did you have, we have you on record that you're here. Is that what you wanted to do?
No, I won't.
Killing me. Let's go.
Again, Jack Kelly, Town Meeting Member Precinct 7, and I believe the particular project in question is in Precinct 7. I'm just one of 18 town meeting members. Although I'm sensitive to the town as a whole, I have special consideration for Precinct 7 residents. And the proposed project, if approved, would have residents in Precinct 7. What we do know for sure at this point is that the Gutierrez Company has indicated that they will not manage the project, the buildings, if built. And my great concern is, of the 400 units, 46 of them will be for sale, 6 townhouses and 40 units in one building. That's less than 12% of the units. And those 46 people will be asked to make a considerable financial investment either in a condo or a townhouse. Typically, in a large development, there's a homeowners association, and the residents who invest in it get a say on what happens. In this particular case, the homeowners who make an investment, a financial investment, and sometimes considerable portion of their assets, will have little or no say because they'll be greatly outnumbered by the rental units, which will be controlled by some management company who we don't know who it is. We don't even know if the Gutierrez Company will maintain ownership and just job out the management, or whether they'll just flip the whole thing. So my concern as one of 18 town meeting members representing our constituents, representing tax-paying residents, and as a townhouse or a condo, they will be paying taxes to the town of Burlington. They will have little or no say as to what goes on in where they live. There will be additional costs beyond their real estate taxes, whether it be the cost of plowing, common space maintenance, or what have you. And I'm concerned that those people, as tax-paying residents, would be looking to us to help them out. Now, whether a development agreement can somehow protect them, I'm not quite sure how that can happen, but I'm very concerned for those people that who are asked to make a substantial investment, quite different than a renter who's paying month to month. I'm quite concerned that their investment is not going to have the protection that I, as a single-family homeowner, or other people will have.
Jack, that's up to the buyer and the buyer's broker to do their homework and to ensure. And while, can you make sure that whoever is muted? Please, thank you. That's up to the buyer to perform their due diligence, and for their broker to do the same thing. I mean, if we got involved in every management agreement, we're busy enough.
Having
the
conducted,
discussion,
as Joe has, a number of purchase and sale agreements and a number of sales, the practical matter is many home buyers don't get that information. They are very much surprised.
then they should hire Joe, because he's an impeccable broker. Or they could hire me, or there's a lot of brokers in town
Yes.
that know what they're doing. And shame on them for buying, for buying a house or buying a property with somebody who isn't going to serve them. But again, while I understand your concern,
It happens.
this is not, that's not within our purview. We can't change that. We can't change management agreements.
My concern
Thank you.
is for the residents of Precinct 7 and the people who make the considerable investment, who will be less than 12% of the occupants, will have little or no say on the extra costs beyond their real estate taxes.
I understand. Thank you. Yes.
Just one quick piece, and I appreciate Jack's comment on that, and that's why you'll see that one extra paragraph in the Subdistrict D language that allows for the for sale portion of the property to become its own entity, like any other condo development where they can control the costs and manage the costs for what's going on their property. They're not going to be subject to, some apartment overlord or something like that, where they have that control unto themselves, like any other condo owner in any other condo type development where they share in those costs.
I understand.
I don't know if you want
I
to add
think
anything.
last
That was-
comment
that's-
is Laura, and then we're moving on.
Okay, Laura, you're back to being requested to be unmuted. There we go.
Oh, okay. So you can hear me now?
Yes.
No.
Okay, great. My name is Laura Diamato. I'm a resident at 20 North Street in Lexington. And I am concerned that as abutters, none of us were notified about this. And also, how close to the Lexington line, to us as abutters, is this going to be coming to?
So just as a bit of a background, there is no, there's nothing that states that a Burlington applicant has to contact a Lexington resident. I don't make the rules, I'm just the messenger. If you would like to be contacted, please feel free to reach out to the planning staff, and they'll ensure that you are notified for future meetings regarding this matter.
Okay, because we do have a substantial part of our property in Burlington and are paying Burlington taxes.
You should be notified.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. But like I said, going forward, if you want to provide your contact details to planning staff, then we can have, we can ensure that you're contacted.
All right, that's what I'll do. Thank you.
Can I say one thing too?
Sure.
Hello? Yeah, I'm Laura's husband, Norbert. We're abutters also of that property, and we basically go right down to where that wetlands is. Is there going to be any kind of barrier up there between us and our property line?
We haven't got that far, sir.
Okay, and he mentioned about the bike path. How are they going to connect the bike path down to Adams Street unless they go through some people's lands? I don't think that property that he's talking about goes all the way down to Adams.
Again, that's beyond where we are right now. We're just simply talking about the basis of a project that still needs to go under site plan review, a development agreement review, and more importantly, through zoning, through town meeting. But again, we'll continue to keep you informed once you provide your contact details. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to the planning board meeting of April 2nd, 2026.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you
Have a
very
good evening,
much.
folks.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
And a lot of laughs.
All right, moving on.
You were first.
Thank you, Joe.
Item
Thank you,
7C
guys.
is a continued public hearing, amendment to Article 2, definitions, Section 2.1A, Article 4, use regulations, Section 4.3, agricultural uses, and 4.2.6, retail, consumer, and trade uses of the zoning bylaws to clarify commercial uses related to animals, submitted by the planning board.
Hello.
Hi.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, this is a zoning amendment that we've spoken about previously. It is about aligning our animal-related uses in our zoning bylaw and what currently is in the general bylaw regarding animals, specifically pets, and to be in compliance with Ollie's Law. And so, you guys have seen this presentation, so I think we can just go down to for those of you who are new here, Ollie's Law was passed last year, and it has to do with kennels in the state that are currently not really being monitored. There have been animal deaths and lawsuits associated with it, and the state has decided that they need to be regulated. And so with that, there are a lot more regulations concerning kennels. So if you want to go down to where we get down, so for the general bylaw, since we're working with the general bylaw and animal control officer Jamie Jeffries, who's here on the WebEx with us, and we're working with them on general bylaw updates, including the animal control officer can inspect kennels, it needs to have safety orders, and really getting more people to license their dogs so they can be better monitored. And so we have new kennel fees. And personal kennels, you have 5 or 6 dogs. That's mostly for people who either have a lot of dogs or are doing doing breeding at home. And if you are anybody in town who is taking in 1 or more dogs for any type of money, then you will be considered a commercial kennel and need to be licensed with the town, so that's a $100 fee, and it basically means that the animal control officer can come in and inspect to make sure that the animals are being kept in a safe manner.
So Liz, we've talked about this a couple of times. What's different than the last? Is there anything new on this presentation that we haven't seen before?
There's nothing new on this presentation. We did have, so the reason why we're back is because members of the board had questions for the animal control officer about kind of what is in the general bylaw and the changes being made to the general bylaw, and then several members had questions regarding kind of what it means in personal kennels.
What is it, these two?
I know, yes.
It's these two.
But they will watch this meeting and they will sign Mullins forms.
The only question I did have, and I believe it was talking about mobile grooming. How is that? Does this law, incorporate mobile grooming, mobile daycares? The people who come and pick up their dogs for doggy daycare. Does it, does it have any influence on the mobile grooming community?
Hi, Jamie, Animal Control here. In terms of mobile grooming, it does not, they should have a commercial license, but if we're talking like rover dog walking situations, it doesn't apply to that. It only applies if they're doing daycare out of their facility. So if they're just picking up the animal for grooming services only, they're not accumulating 3, 4, 5 dogs for a play date in the midst of grooming, it does not apply to the groomers.
Understood. Do you have a list of their questions?
Yes, I believe I do. One of them was about how, basically, I think that it would help is if you could give an overview of what constitutes a commercial kennel and how is it different than what it previously was, because I think that's kind of the main crux of people's questions.
Yeah, so commercial kennels is like a facility that should have a commercial license for a business operating. Personal kennels would more identify you have 5 or more dogs that reside in your home. Our current bylaw is 4 or more dogs, so that's where the Ollie's Law switch is now 5 or more dogs. If you're doing daycare out of your home, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 dogs, you need to get a kennel license. Now, if you're your neighbor asks you to watch their dog, even if it's like a daycare situation, you don't have to get a kennel license. So this is pertaining to if you bring the animal to your house, you need to get a kennel license if you're operating a business where you're exchanging money. Where a commercial kennel would be like a PetSmart who has a facility, who runs, a daycare boarding type of facility.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that, I can't remember if it was asked or it was in my head last time, was how is this communicated, potentially enforced, and how does it ripple through the community for people who have, say, been doing this for neighbors for years, who have not been, under any of these fees or registrations previously. How do we communicate that out? How is it followed up on? And I assume there's going to be people who have been doing this for years who suddenly have to pay $100, $200 and register that are being quite upset. So is there a change management plan for all of that?
So my approach with all of this is just education. I'm all education based. A lot of it ripples down to their annual licenses. So the state law is everybody that owns an animal has to license their dogs. So if somebody is like advertising they're doing daycare, I mean, it's gonna unfold if they're not in compliance with it. But really, it's conversations with people when they're licensing or just calling for questions. So enforcement, it's really just making sure that they're complying with just doing their annual licenses, and then it's red flagged if they have more than the equivalent number for the state, because they had 4 dogs last year and they just acquired another one. The town clerk's office won't license unless they have their kind of license, if that makes sense.
It does. I just think, just as a comment, I'm a big proponent of animal welfare, very excited to see this. Just want to think through how it plays out in the community, right? And I just think.
Yeah, so the most important thing, I think, supporting responsible pet ownership and protecting the animal welfare and maintain the quality for residents is, the key component here. And the state is just making these regulations more for an oversight to make sure that the animals are, equipped in safe environments. The inspections are annually. They're scheduled unless there's a red flag during those inspections. So annually, I'm required to inspect them. It's set up by appointment. It's not just like I'm just popping in when I feel like it. It's always scheduled. Unless there's a red flag, I hold on the kennel license, give them time to fix the remedy the situation, and then I'll re-inspect for them to pass the inspection.
Yeah, just want to make sure you're set up for success with this.
Yeah. The main goal is to just make sure the animals and their welfare is, key, number one priority.
Thank you.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions, comments, concerns? This is a public hearing. Is there any members of the public here or in person that wish to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, may I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to the planning board meeting of April 2nd, 2026.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll probably be reaching out because we're missing 2 members. But hopefully we can connect with you prior to our next meeting so we can move forward with a vote.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Did we have any minutes?
No, I didn't send them out.
Okay. Moving on to discussion matters, or matters of discussion. We did receive a letter of support for the Cooling Corridors grant proposal. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at that? Does anyone? No.
I have not. I saw it, but I didn't read it.
Okay, so we'll table that so they can read it and they can ask questions appropriately. Does that make sense? Or you just...
Do you want to hit the highlights?
Yeah, I would love to be able to hit the highlights. So this is a grant proposal that the Conservation Commission is, or the Conservation Department is looking to get. It's called Cooling Corridors, and it actually uses GIS maps that are available by the state to look at areas of town that could use more tree cover, canopies, because there are heat islands, and we, on this board, we talk about requiring applicants to provide shade trees and do the right thing to curb that, because this town, we have a lot of asphalt here. And so they have created a planting plan. Should they receive the grant, the Conservation Department has created a planting plan in the area of Yeah, if you
This
want.
is the second one, correct?
Yes, but it's reimagined, so this is, last year they went for it, and they're redesigning it.
So we didn't receive the grant last year?
We did not receive the grant last year, but this year, they have redesigned it for the, along
Francis
Francis
Wyman
Wyman Road and Francis Wyman Elementary. So they are looking to use the money to, they have a planting plan that they've submitted, and they'd like to get money to purchase trees and plant trees on public rights of way, outside of the way of telephone poles, to add tree cover to curb the heat island effect. So they're just looking for the planning board's support on that grant proposal. And so this is the GIS map that shows areas of,
A kind of over here, it's A Street, A and B Street over here, and then as I was saying, over closer to the Francis Wyman's.
Would the members of the board like to read the letter on their own, or do we want to pull it up?
yeah, we can pull it up.
Read it on my own.
Do I have?
Joe wants to read it on his own.
Well, I mean, send it around, but I can bring it up. I can send it around.
I'm surprised you made that comment.
You know what? As long as we're not being redundant, redundancy is what.
No, this is a new.
This is, well, I'm sure it's the same letter from last year or something similar.
I said we table it till the second week in.
I'm going to send it to your house.
So, I mean, Joe and Pemba, come on.
Do you want this table to the first meeting in May?
I'm going on record now because I may not be here, but I'm in support.
Yeah, I also did get a letter of, an email from Jess Sutherland that she would be in support of this. So just for the record.
All right, so.
Everyone can read that?
Yeah, I'm
we
in
got some.
support of it.
Well, I mean, I already know what it says. I read it, so I don't have a problem signing it.
Yeah.
Mixed district update.
Sure, so we have sent out the newly the newly updated design guidelines and standards to members of the development community, Macy's, the mall,
I support it.
Brixmore Properties, Chamber of Commerce, all the people that will be using the new design guidelines and standards, to make sure that, that they're easy to use and that they feel like that they make sense and that they're easily to use, and it's a streamlined process. And so I am awaiting feedback from them, and after that, we will likely have a meeting with that group to discuss their feedback and go from there, and then hopefully we can have you guys look at it as well and hopefully adopt it. So that's where we are with that.
Town Center MDI, public presentation on April 8th.
On April 8th, so.
Mr. Joe.
Joe, it's on the Town Center, you should still come.
I'll be there.
You'll be there. So Town Center MDI grant, so this is a grant that we received through the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative to revamp our design guidelines and standards for the town center, not necessarily looking at kind of the aesthetic component, but more on how it's implemented and how internally we use the design guidelines and the process by which that happens to make it a little bit more streamlined and predictable for developers so that we see more development in the town center area, because we've done a lot down there. We've done middle housing, and we're really trying to make it into that smart growth area that it was always envisioned to be. So that's the update on that. Economic Development Summit recap. I was there, and anybody, I just kind of wanted to put this in there as a discussion item if anybody who was there wanted to talk about their thoughts and kind of takeaways from it.
I mean, I think it was helpful for folks that aren't in the thick of things. I mean, some of us are in, all of us being in the planning board, I think it was all kind of knowledge. I mean, it's great to hear somebody else's perspective, but I don't think it was anything that was new or surprising that was brought to the table, personally.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I think it was great. I think it's
always great to get that rooted together and talk about ideas.
That's exactly
right. But I didn't, like I said, we've been kind of working on these things for quite some time, so it's.
And the discussion is that there's no one perfect solution
There's
to
no
solve
one.
all the problems. It's going to continue to have to be more conversations and
Yes.
more, problem solving.
Absolutely.
That involves and starts with collaboration.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
I agree that they basically said there's a lot of options out there, a lot of companies want different things, but I think one of the important little sentences I took was, if we want middle housing, the economic incentives aren't there to just build it, and so if we want that, there's probably some incentive that we have to give to get that to happen.
I agree with that.
Well,
Yes.
well, to get the middle housing, but then in the same vein, if you think about it, if they're, and that's why I brought up the tax, the 25% tax
Yeah.
incentive from the Housing Act, I mean, that's a huge benefit to them. So when we're putting together this, or when they're putting together this analysis that we're looking at, I know you're going to look at it.
I've already looked at it.
Well, without the tax incentives,
Well,
right?
that's why I
'Cause
asked the
those weren't-
question, if they could deviate and make more of the townhouse component.
I mean, if they're getting a 25% or an up to 25% tax incentive, I mean, that's a nice chunk of change. And I think that's, that should be an incentive if there was really going to be a change in zoning, which I'm not sold on, should be reviewed. So. Anyone else want to chime in on that? Or we want to talk about the $1 million infrastructure grant from Seth Moulton's office?
So this was a great announcement that I recently learned about. So the town got an infrastructure, $1 million infrastructure grant through Seth Moulton's office. Where is it?
So I think that it's also important, Liz, to differentiate. We just received another $1 million grant when that was for design and planning, and this is specifically.
Correct.
This is for infrastructure construction. The one that we received for the design cannot be used for construction. So this is in addition to the first $1 million, so we're.
Yeah, so this is, this is specifically for the Middlesex Corridor Improvement Plan. So with Economic Development Office, they're, working with VHB to kind of look at alternative transportation modes, how we can enhance alternative transportation modes along Middlesex Turnpike, make it more connected. How do we get from the movie theater to the mall? How do we get under 128 from, the side with Market Basket to the side with the mall, and make it not kind of terrifying. So this is $1 million. We previously got a grant that was just for design through the MassWorks grant program. This is specifically, this $1 million can go towards actual construction of these improvements. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, because it's very exciting, and all good things.
And that was
To get some infrastructure grants to put all the utilities underground all the way down 3A.
All the, yeah.
That'd be
3A,
nice.
that's where we need to go. See what Seth Moulton can do before the election.
You might have another $1 million.
All right, folks. Does anyone else have anything else that they'd like to address? May I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
If I have to add. We're really asking for a second on that one? Wow, guys, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.